Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is Imam Oliver Muhammad, and welcome to the Cup of Fajr. This is our 18th day of Ramadan, Juice 18. Today, this juice covers Sura Al Sura Al-Nur, and Ayat 1 through 20 of Surah 25 Al Furqan. The first chapter in this juice is Al-Mu'minun, the believers, a name that definitely gives a summary of the theme of the chapter. You know, it begins Qad aflaha mu'minun, surely the believers will win through. It begins with Qad, there's an article of certainty to say that the believers really are winners. So we want to look at this surah and its scope and its sequence and appreciate the description that Allah gives to the believers. It also commences, as I said, with giving us an outline of the qualities of the believers, and then it narrates the lives of the diverse prophets to demonstrate how a believer is to emulate the lives of the prophet and know that what they went through, you will go through. It then goes to the point where it begins to repudiate the disbelievers, those who are in opposition to believers, to also give us a lesson that as believers in God and people of faith, it's not going to be easy. We're going to have people who are going to be against us. We're going to have forces of evil working against our belief and our faith. And it also shows how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defends the prophets and their message. In closing of the surah, Allah returns to describing the qualities of believers with a description of the last day and a supplication regarding the mercy and the forgiveness that's given to the believers. Then it's followed by Surah Al-Nur, and some scholars say this is the crowning verse of the surah, which is the verse of light. And there's a parable described by Ibn Abbas, this young man whom the Prophet prayed for that he would bless him with knowledge of the religion. He gives an interpretation of this parable as the parable is the light in the heart of the believer. Wonderful. Then the final chapter in this juice is Al Furqan, the criterion, which develops shows the contrast, if you will, between light and darkness. And it comforts the prophet, giving him reassurance and showing him support in a time when he himself was faced with rejection, hostility, and persecution and maltreatment from those that he was calling to. So this contrast between the believer and disbeliever and light and darkness is the polarity that we see. Wonderful how the Quran uses this to show us that there is a polarity in everything. It says after difficulty comes ease, hardship and ease, evil and good. It just goes throughout the whole Quran, giving us a polarity of the differences between these two differences. So, what can we learn from this juice today? The qualities of the believer is recorded here, and it's recounted in the beginning of Al-Mu'minun. And what we have to ask ourselves when we read these qualities, how it describes what a believer does. And I always say, if God says that Qad aflaha mu'minun, that believers will be successful, I say that believers and successful people are willing to do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. And a believer is willing to do what unbelievers are not willing to do. And a successful person is willing to do what an unsuccessful person is willing to do. So, what is it that gives a successful person and a believer a slight edge? That's the question you have to ask yourself as you read this juice and look at how the Quran describes the characteristics of a believer and a successful person. Then the scene of death is depicted, and the blowing of the trumpet at the end of time, and the end of those who disbelieve, that they meet an ending that is not good. Al-Mu'minun begins by stating that the believers, I said, will be successful, and ends by stating that the disbelievers will not be successful. That's what we just said earlier. Al-Nur begins by mentioning the prescribed punishment for fornication, making false accusations, and the ruling of lihzan, that means invoking the curse of God. We really want to study this carefully. Why would God punish this act of fornication? What is it so bad about it that it deserves punishment? What happens? What is the impact of it on the individual? What is the impact on the society? God, He makes it haram because it brings about harm. If it was good, it would be halal. So halal is those things that preserve the good and makes it it's not difficult on human beings. Something that's halal is good. It's for the development of human life. It gives human life dignity. But why would fornication be an act that be punished? That's the question that we have to explore as you read these surahs. And then this surah, Al-Nur, it defines, it confirms, pardon me, the virtues of the Prophet's wife Aisha, because she was falsely accused of doing something that she wasn't guilty of. So all this is linked together. So you need to understand, he's focusing your attention now on the negativity and the harm that fornication does to the society and to the person, as well as how it tarnishes a person's image, even if it's a rumor that somebody has done this. It tarnishes a person's image and their dignity. And then Allah promises that He will establish on earth those who believe. But this has conditions, the establishment. What is it? And He will, and in one of the verses say He will establish those who believe on the earth with a word that stands firm in this life and in the next. And these virtues are listed. These conditions are listed. And then Al Furqan begins by praising the one who revealed the criteria. It praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for revealing this criterion between right and wrong. It's interesting how you can find the coherence of this surah with the previous ones, and how the issue of right and wrong, of committing acts, and then the Quran clarifies the difference between right and wrong. And then we talk about, and it closes by talking about the accusations against the Quran and the life of the Prophet. So, the brothers and sisters, I pray to Allah that you will take your time and study this juice, very important juice, and it will give us great guidance if we reflect on it and take good notes. May Allah bless you. Ramadan Mubarak with this wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.